Hi there, everyone. My name is Christian Eschbach, and welcome to another one of my album reviews. It's Alice Cooper time, folks. We're doing another Alice Cooper album. This album is special to me on a multitude of levels. It was the third or fourth Alice Cooper album I ever owned that I owned. Not that I borrowed from a parent or anything, that I personally owned. My mom got me the cassette through Columbia House. My mom was good that way. She'd pick up Alice Cooper albums for me from Columbia House when she was doing, those big orders or she had to fill something out or whatnot. So, once in a while she'd pick me up an Alice album that way. And that's how I got it, And it wasn't for my birthday or anything like that. It was just, she made a Columbia House order and went, here, this is for you. This is really cool. Constrictor is the album I am talking about, okay? Now, Constrictor is important to me for that reason. I listened to this album from the age of like 10 to 12, I'm going to say. This was a major, major mainstay in my rotation of albums. Absolutely love this album. I can recite this album front to back, in and out. I could write essays on this album, and I think I have written an essay almost. I have a written review. If you look out there in the universe, I actually have a whole bunch of written reviews I did like 10 years ago. And this one had one of the biggest ones in it because of how much of the album I actually like is ingrained in me. But everything I've just mentioned is not the reason why this album is so special to me. I got into music when vinyl was becoming an obsolete thing. I did have a record player. My very first stereo system was actually my mom's old stereo system. It had a combo 8-track cassette and vinyl record player. And unfortunately, the needle on the record player, I didn't know enough about taking care of it at the time, and I accidentally screwed up the needle really bad. Not on vinyl. It wasn't on records that I screwed up the needle either. I didn't toast vinyls. It was other stuff I was doing, like, listening to other things with it. Yeah. I like to experiment with weird stuff like that. Hey, can the plate make sound? Hey, what does the bottom of the record player sound like? Yeah, stupid stuff that a 10-year-old would do. So I didn't have a needle on my record player. And I never bought vinyl because vinyl was going out. I honestly didn't start really buying music for myself until 88. Most of the stuff I was buying in 88 was cassette because I had a Walkman and I had a cassette player. No, I started with a cassette player and then later I bought myself a Walkman. So, everything I bought was on cassette just for convenience. And then when I got a CD player in I think it was Christmas in 91, everything I switched over to was CD. And believe it or not, this was actually one of the first Alice CDs I picked up as well because it was a cheaper Alice CD at the time. So this one here has been in my collection. This was probably the first 20 CDs I ever bought. Still, not at the part why it is so special to me. I gotta go back to the record part. This was also the very first vinyl I ever bought. But I didn't buy the vinyl for the sake of having, it's an Alice Cooper vinyl. Because I did that later on. I have a whole bunch of Alice Cooper vinyl that I bought specifically so I have Alice Cooper vinyl. Bought it in a bulk thing off of eBay, back in the early days of eBay. This vinyl I bought at a store that no longer exists in Windsor. It was called Olympic Records. It was a used records shop, so I could have bought vinyl there at any time. I actually went there for my comic books mainly. But they had an album that I had to buy. And I have owned this copy of vinyl since 1992 or 1993. It is in the same plastic it's been in. I take it out occasionally just to take it out of the plastic so it doesn't get stuck to the plastic, and you'll understand in a minute why I'm saying all this. But this is, to this day, one of the coolest vinyls I have ever seen or owned. And I paid $25 for it back then. I don't even care what the collector value is now because it's just not going anywhere. Check it out, baby. That is 100% genuine picture disc. And this is stamped 1986. So this is original promotional picture disc run of Alice Cooper's Constrictor. Now, I've really rambled on a lot already at this point, but it's an important album to me, so I'm going to keep doing this. Now, I have done everything I can to keep this out of the light. It looks like there's some yellowing in here. I believe it's just the yellow it's picking up off the record. I don't think there's actually any yellowing. Like I said, I'm going to hold this here. You can see this is the bag that it's been in. This is the original bag it came in. It's still been sitting in there all these years. Okay, so you can see the bag hasn't yellowed. That's just some coloring in there. I have never, ever played this. I will never, ever play this. I feel uncomfortable taking it out now to show you this for as long as I am. But I absolutely love this album. This is, outside of autographed albums, and I do have a few of those. Outside of autographed albums, and even including one of the autographed albums, including my Lace and Whiskey autographed album, this is still one of my... I only have two Alice Cooper pieces of memorabilia right now that I value more than this album. And that is my autographed Alice Cooper box set and my autographed copy of Dada, which is actually autographed by Dick Wagner, and the second I get it autographed by Alice Cooper, it will be the most cherished piece of my anything collection. And then if I can get Bob Ezrin to autograph it on top of that, oh my God, I will be the happiest little boy. Oh my God, yes. I want my Dada album so badly autographed by Alice and Bob Ezrin, so badly. Sneak previews. Alright, so let's get into the actual music on this album. The album starts off with Teenage Frankenstein. Good, solid tune. So, if you ever get the chance, watch Alice Cooper's The Nightmare Returns concert. It's actually the tour from this album. A lot of really cool songs get played live with great Alice kind of style. Teenage Frankenstein, one of those songs I'm surprised, now with Nita Strauss being in the band, and she really loves this era, I'm surprised Teenage Frankenstein hasn't been added back into the set list often. Because there are a couple songs on here that have actually been tossed back in, at least one that I can think of. Which is the next song, Give It Up. Great tune. It was cool to get to see Alice do that one live. Especially older, you know. It's cool that I don't remember if my kids went to that concert or not. No. Did he do that one? Yeah, I think he did do that one at Bayfest. I don't remember. I have to go back and check. Give It Up is actually one of the songs on the album that I'm actually the least into, though. It's not a bad tune, but it's okay. There's a couple songs, and it's really weird because, you know, I've had this album in one variation or another now, literally for 3 decades. over 3 decades. Like if I got it when I was first 10, I'm now 42. So I've, 32 years I've had a variation of this. And my opinions over this album, some of the songs have changed, some haven't. Teenage Frankenstein, I still feel the same way about Teenage Frankenstein now as I did as a kid. I think it's a really fun song. It's really great and kind of geared into that mentality of what it's like to kind of be a kid, But I find it definitely is. It's really interesting because me looking back on it right now is the age that Alice Cooper was when he actually did the album. Or I think Alice was maybe just a little before 42 at this point. But he was around that age when he did this album. He would have been 38. If I remember, maybe. Anyways, getting off topic. So, around the same thing. So, it's kind of Alice writing it from his perspective as being a kid. And I can totally see it from that perspective now, too, when I'm listening to it. When I was listening to it to do this review. Give It Up, on the other hand, I still feel the same way as I did when I was a kid. I'm just not it's not bad, but it's not a huge song for me. I actually much prefer the next song, Thrill My Gorilla, which is so horribly campy and cheesy as an adult. But even as an adult, I love the context of it. Just that whole primal, primal love, primal drive, primal sex, primal everything, The one thing you have to remember, and I will mention when I get to this, is this album was directly connected to what is considered probably the greatest Friday the 13th movie of all time. I will get to that as we go. But when you think Friday the 13th, think of all that debauchery, all that villainy, all that other stuff. Alice Cooper, baby. It totally makes sense. Death, sex, and money. Thrill My Gorilla works. And speaking of death, Life and the Death of the Party. As a kid, this song actually bugged me, and I'd usually go hit fast forward. It was just kind of too slow for me as a kid, and I couldn't really get into it. I got the concept of it, but I hadn't lived it. I hadn't experienced it. And until you've lived and experienced a woman that is the life and the death of the party and everything else like that, you really don't have a true appreciation for this song. And once you've met that chick, who can be both the life and the death of the party, you really get the song and then get on a whole new level. Really good song, though. I love the song on every front as an adult. It's one of the ones I actually listen to more often now from this album. So it really does show how, change and growth. Whereas a kid, kid fast forward, adult, hell no, let's put this one on, to the point where I'd even cover that one, It's a really cool, fun song. Typo Negative actually probably should have covered that one. It would have been really cool. After that, we get into Simple Disobedience. As a kid, great song. So much fun. Musically, really cool song. I love the texturing in this song. I love the way it's played up. I love the stomping kind of vibe they have in it. Really kind of cool. It really does get that civil kind of unrest going on. I'm not sure how I feel about it as much as an adult. I mean, I'm not into obedience, but, simple disobedience is just, that's that person that goes out of their way just to be difficult. Don't need that headache. Then we get to Trick Bag. Now, thanks to having the Alice Cooper box set, I actually know the story behind Trick Bag. Trick Bag, the music for Trick Bag, completely different song. Originally, Trick Bag was the original song that was submitted under the title He's Back to, I don't remember which movie studio it was that was doing Friday the 13th at that time. And they really liked the lyrics, but they didn't like the song. They thought the song was too energetic, too uplifting. And it is. I love Trick Bag. Trick Bag is still to this day one of my all-time favorite songs on here. It's such a cool tune because the music is really awesome and the lyrics aren't bad either. You know, it's like but it's a really fun song. So they basically took this great song that they had that was musically this awesome tune, and they just put new lyrics on it, made it a sexual tune. You know. And speaking of sexual tunes, that goes into Crawlin'. Crawlin' was a song that, as a kid, I obviously couldn't appreciate properly until I started becoming sexually aware. And as I started becoming sexually aware, I really started to enjoy Crawlin' from that perspective as, you know, a dumb kid. Now, as an adult, I still love Crawlin'. Crawlin' is just, you know, that's such a good song. It really is, you know. It really is that whole animal magnetism wanting to screw each other's brains raw, you know. And I love it for that reason. I do. Then we get into The Great American Success Story. Yet another song I really was not into as a kid. It's weird though, because this one I've kind of done a flip-flop on. As a kid, I really wasn't into it. As an adult in my early 20s, early 30s, especially when I did go back to school the second time and stuff like that, this song started almost becoming a mantra for me. It was a great mantra, you know. And then I realized what a crock of shit it really was. And now I'm just bitter. So I'm going back, you know, looking at going back to school for the third time now. But The Great American Success Story, it's a great mentality. And on this album, for things that were going on at that time, and even how Hollywood was portraying a lot of music and stuff at that time, like this album is really honestly Hollywood inspired to me. And The Great American Success Story, I enjoy it more now, and I'll listen to it now. You know, as a kid, it was fast forward, not skip. There was no skip. It was fast forward. And then it was skip when I got the CD later on. But that was it. Now, last song on this album, He's Back, The Man Behind the Mask. Theme from the motion picture Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. For the longest time, it was the only song off this album that would ever get played live, and for some weird reason, only in, I believe it was Sweden? Somewhere over in, you know, that area. And it was just because of how huge of a single it was there. This album in general didn't chart the way they had possibly hoped it was going to chart. And this song is a fantastic song. Totally. I'm glad that they asked Alice to go back and take the lyrics and redo a new song. Because what they did on this song is just brilliant. Absolutely just fantastic song. Now, there is one other song that isn't on here that was, I don't know if it ended up as a B-side for here. It did go down to the Alice Cooper box set. And it was in the movie, and you can hear it clearly in the movie too. If you watch the movie, and you can hear when they're booting around in, I think it's a Firebird. It's not a Firebird, it's a Camaro. They're booting around in it, and you can hear a cool, fast, high-paced song in the background. Hard Rock Summer. Another one. I believe that one was a cover, though. It would have been cool if they would have tacked it into this album, but they left it out. It's okay. Really, honestly, a great album. And it's an underrated album. But it's a dated album. It is very much an 80s album. I love every part of this 80s album, right down to the excessive use of flange. I love me. This album is the reason why I love the flange effect on both guitar and bass so much. Little phase is nice too for this album. Now, the one thing I am going to mention about this album, which I have not talked about yet, is the band on this album. First and foremost, obviously got Alice Cooper. But here's where it gets fun. Now, there's a mix of musicians on this album, because there's a couple people. And there's a couple people because Trickbag and He's Back were recorded separate from everything else. So there were separate musicians on those two particular songs. But I don't know the exact split up. But I know Kane Roberts was a good part of that. So Kane Roberts is the next member up, and Kane Roberts played like almost every instrument on this album, depending on which song. First and foremost, Kane Roberts, if you ever go, you gotta look at pictures of Kane Roberts from the 80s and 90s. The dude was Rambo with a guitar. Literally, he had a guitar that looked like an AK-47. The dude was ripped like Rambo, you know, like, I mean, that was part of the gimmick with him. And his guitar, he'd shoot flames out of it and stuff like that. Kane Roberts went into game programming later on. He left music more or less because his career didn't take off. He couldn't flourish solo. And that's partly because he was an 80s guitarist. He got locked into that. Fantastic musician, though, because guitars, bass, keyboards, background vocals, and drums, depending on which track on this album. It doesn't list which track on this album, so I can't say for certain. Then you get David Rosenberg on drums. No clue who that was. Donnie Kesselbach on bass guitar. Not another one I don't know the name of. But here's a name that everybody knows. And we can thank Alice Cooper or hate Alice Cooper, depending on which way you want to look at this, for making this person into a household name. Kip Winger, motherfuckers! That's right. Kip Winger started, before he became Winger, he started as Alice Cooper's bassist. Yes, that's right. He toured with Alice and everything. Appeared on 2 albums. That is Kip Winger. Then we got Paul Delph, who did keyboards on He's Back. Tom Kelly and Beau Hill, who added background vocals on He's Back. Great album. It really is. It is a dated album, but if you like 80s metal, and I mean, if you like really good, if you want to hear solid, cool, great 80s metal, this is some solid ass 80s metal, man. I will take this album over basically anything Megadeth released in the 80s. Although Peace Sells is pretty good. But I will honestly take this album over anything Megadeth released in the 80s. I won't take it over anything Metallica had released up until this point, because at this point Metallica had released Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, and Master of Puppets. So, you know, those 3 albums are... Motley Crue was floundering by 86. What else? Ozzy wasn't doing so hot in 86. You know, this is what the situation is. You know, everybody else was kind of like sucking some ass, except for Metallica. Megadeth wasn't sucking ass either. They hadn't found their footings yet. To be fair, though, I think I'd take this album over most of Megadeth's albums, but that's just because partially it's Alice Cooper and it's me. You know, but this album should have done better than it did. But at 86, you're looking more at your Bon Jovis, Def Leppards, stuff like that. That was doing a lot better mainstream, and this was a little too heavy for that. And the other thing too is radio was in a weird spot, because metal, this is metal, okay, just so we're clear, this is actual real 80s metal. I don't even want to chalk it into glam, but it has that glam kind of element to it, that glam kind of sound. But truly metal, okay? Metal itself had a hard time getting radio play at that time, outside of maybe California. I don't know if California was playing, but Detroit wasn't really even playing metal. It seriously took until like the early 90s before you really started hearing metal on the radio, and we're talking about Detroit, you know, Detroit Rock City. And And then when metal did finally get accepted, metal ended up getting its own channel. But at that point, this type of metal was completely taboo, you know? It was dated, it was out, it was done. So this album really gets kind of lost in the shuffle, and it really sucks that way. So pick it up, give it a try. It really is a good, solid album. If you can find it used, pick it up used. But usually if you find it new, you can actually find it for a half decent price new, you know. I think I've never seen it for more than maybe 13, 14 bucks Canadian. So American will be even less. Great album. Seriously. Anyways, folks. Enough saying of great albums, seriously. Leave me your comments, let me know what you think. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Otherwise, peace, love, and take care.